Breathe and criticize. Make your opinions heard. Even if you sound absurd. Review anything, no matter what it is.
Hello, chums, and welcome to Review Anything. I'm your host, Sour Apple. Let's hit the review generator and see what we're analyzing today, shall we? Dinosaurs. A puppet sitcom that lasted for over 4 seasons. Its origins date back to the late great Jim Henson, who conjured up the idea before he died. Before I critique Dinosaurs, I think it's very important that I explain why Jim Henson was such an important figure.
Jim Henson was a groundbreaking filmmaker that brought puppetry to new levels. He was the mastermind behind such iconic series as The Muppets, Sesame Street, and Fraggle Rock. He directed the fantasy epic features The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. He was a visionary, a unique puppeteer, an experimentalist, and an artist in every word. He was also the voice and hands behind many of his own puppet creations, most notably Kermit the Frog.
So, in other words, Jim Henson was a legend. He is part of film and television history. When Jim Henson died, he left behind his creations in the hands of his fellow puppeteers, including his son, Brian Henson.
Now, Brian is just as creative as his father. He directed The Muppets Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island. He also has been a Muppet performer himself for many years. With the help of talented sitcom writers, Brian Henson helped transform his father's idea of a dinosaur sitcom into an intelligent satirical fantasy comedy. The show relied on ambitious puppets that combined suits and animatronics.
Now, many people have labelled Dinosaurs as a kids' show. Personally, I believe that's not the case. To me, that's a load of poppycock. It's more of a family program. It combines adult topics with family values. It's intelligent, thought-provoking, but silly enough to amuse children. It just happens to use large-scale puppetry to tell its stories.
Puppetry has often been categorized as something made just for children, which is a ludicrous reputation for such a gloriously inventive art form. There are many adult puppet productions, and stage puppetry itself is a mainstream brand of entertainment in the Czech Republic. Puppetry takes so much hard effort. It's not as simple as pulling strings or flapping your hand. A puppeteer needs to convince his or her audience that a sock or marionette is actually alive.
Since the invention of computer-generated effects, puppetry has kind of lost its popularity, and some people do underestimate its power. Yes, I'm well aware of the Muppets reboot, but puppetry nowadays isn't as well popular as it was back in the 90s, 80s, and even further back than that. So, I'm going to review Dinosaurs and explain why it's so unique. Let's begin.
Dinosaurs follows the lives of the Sinclairs, a family of anthropomorphic dinosaurs that live in a highly advanced version of the prehistoric era, in the country of Pangia. Let's first discuss the members of the family. There's Earl, the father and husband of the family. Earl has tendencies to express racist or sexist prejudice. He's a bit dim, has a bad temper, and has a habit of being lazy. Despite these negative character traits, Earl loves his family, often learns to accept others, and you gradually sympathize with him when you see what amount of stress he goes through. His family can be demanding of him, he has a tedious job, and his boss is a huge grumpy triceratops that makes his life hell. He'll often put his company before his family in fear of losing his job. He's a cowardly, over-patriotic idiot, but represents the everyman of the dinosaur world. Now, the way I'm describing him may make you presume that he's highly unlikable, but far from it. There's something quite appealing about him, and I think that's thanks to the character's performance. From the animatronics in his brows that reflect sincerity, to the voice provided for Earl from Stuart Pangia. Earl is a hate-filled grouch that's attached to old-fashioned traditions, but I can often forgive him for his behaviour because I know deep down that he's a nice guy. When his boss BP Richfield belittles and punishes him, you really want him to be given the freedom to feel bigger about himself. That's where his family comes in. He becomes his own boss in his own household. Earl has a dopey best friend called Roy, who the kids call Uncle Roy, and a country singing sister called Pearl. Then there's Fran, the mother and wife of the family. Fran is a homemaker. She's full of strength, sensitivity, and high intelligence. She is perhaps one of the best female characters that I've come across in a sitcom. Fran longs for something more than her everyday job as a wife and mother, so she often dips into brief careers. She is perhaps the strongest figure in the house, and is even strong enough to lower Earl down a peg whenever he's sexist or belittles her role in family decisions. She has an open mind and is very accepting of others. She also stands up for herself and protects her family. However, she does have a weakness: her baby son. She has a habit of spoiling her baby and even lets him dictate or control the family. But this goes in a different direction when in one episode she ends up exploiting her baby in favor of fame and fortune. Fran also has a close friend, her neighbor Monica. I love Monica. Monica is a real estate agent that's even more wise than anyone in the Sinclair household. She's a prime example of a female dinosaur success in the society of Pangia. Then there's Robbie, a very three-dimensional character. He's a teenage boy full of curiosity and rebellion. He stands up for good causes, but also tends to protest against repressive traditions that he sees no point to. He's often responsible for making changes in Pangia. He's an intelligent, caring, and open-minded boy that defends female rights, animals, the environment, and dinosaur species. He speaks his mind and isn't afraid of the consequences for his freedom to express his own opinion. Robbie cares for his family, but often gets into arguments with his more right-winged father. And despite being a sensitive individual, he'll often tease his siblings. Due to his curiosity, intelligence, and nature to break past conventions or restrictions, Robbie often takes the Pangian society into new grounds when he invents or discovers ideas. He's also got an interest in performing electric guitar and loves rock music. He does have a weakness too: girls. His hormonal obsession with girls leads him to his darkest behavior and biggest mistakes. He has two love interests throughout the show, a girl called Caroline and BP Richfield's daughter, Wendy. He has a best friend called Spike, a slick-talking tough guy with a soft spot for Robbie. Despite Spike's character trait of being rude and harsh, he's actually very protective of Robbie and even helps him in times of need. It's a very unconventional friendship for a family sitcom. Robbie's left-wing views of dinosaur society frustrates his father, and this leads to fascinating father-son debates that either divide or test the characters themselves. He's a very fleshed-out and highly likable character. I have to credit him as my favourite character on the show. If Robbie is my favourite character, then Charlene is my least favourite. Charlene is a teenage girl that I actually find hard to tolerate. She's stuck up, shallow, lazy, irresponsible, and self-absorbed. I know these traits are intentional, but I just can't find anything I like about her. They do give Charlene her own episodes, but, well, these episodes don't make her any more likable. In fact, I dreaded Charlene-based episodes. In one episode, Charlene is given a talking expensive coat that convinces her to be vain and stuck up. She was already vain and stuck up in the first place. It's a very pointless influence on Charlene because it doesn't change her or test her. In addition, The only time that she's shown a passion in an interest was when she exploited some humans to make her own entertainment act, which just makes her even more despicable and unlikable. You could credit her for discovering that the world is round in an episode, but this discovery is accidentally handed to her by a clumsy angel muse. She does later find out herself that this fact is true, but it bugs me that the source of her discovery remains handed on a plate to her. She didn't work for this discovery, she didn't think hard. Now, she does become more tolerable towards the end of the show. She goes on an adventure that turns her into a stronger and more mature woman. She also tries to save the population of a species of bugs. But these two examples of a tolerable version of Charlene only happen in 2 separate episodes in the last season. In the rest of the 63 episodes, she's an annoying and boring presence to me. While Earl may be a jerk, he's at least charismatic, interesting, and consistently sensitive at times. Charlene is just an all-round horrible presence on the show to me. Then there's Baby, the most popular character on the show. I bloody adore Baby Sinclair. He's a wonderful creation. He's spoilt, manipulative, sadistic, psychotic, sweet, adorable, cheeky, and dangerous. There are so many sides to him. He's a lovable little guy. He's smart for his age, has a hidden caring nature, and provides some of the show's best catchphrases. He refers to Earl as not the mama, and frequently hits him with a frying pan. One can forgive Baby for being a sociopathic, bratty tyke because he's so wacky and cute. He's the most cartoony character in the show and provides the most comedy elements in Dinosaurs episodes. At the same time, he can learn from his mistakes as he grows up throughout each season. He is batshit crazy, but learns to appreciate his family at times. Baby is puppeteered and voiced by the ultra-talented Kevin Clash. Clash is best known for playing the Sesame Street character Elmo. Clash uses his Elmo voice to portray Baby, but Baby is very different from Elmo. The character Elmo represents love, while Baby represents anarchy. Baby is a brilliant creation that deserves his popularity. Finally, there's Ethel. Ethel is Fran's mother that lives with the family, starting from episode 3. At first, it took me time to feel attached to Ethel, but then I started to see what was so great about her. Her deadpanned, bitter characteristics make her seem almost cool as a grandmother figure. She's old-fashioned but very cheeky. She's the voice of dinosaur history for the family and a firm believer of natural medicine. Unfortunately, none of the family members have any consistent development. They tend to stick to their own character traits in every episode. Sure, sometimes there's often a major change for a character in an episode, but this change won't carry on into other episodes, which is disappointing.
So, those were my thoughts on the Dinosaurs characters. Now, quite a lot of episodes featured guest characters, and these characters were often voiced by well-known actors. Actors like Jeffrey Tambor, Tim Curry, Jason Alexander, Michael McKean, Michael Dorn, Edward Asner, and many, many, many others. It's fantastically impressive. Now, I'd like to talk about the puppets in Dinosaurs.
These puppets are phenomenal. They're so impressive in terms of detail, size, and ambition. These grand-scale creations are puppeteered by 2 or more puppeteers, each then voiced by a puppeteer themselves or a voice actor. The puppeteers involved include Steve Whitmire, the man who took over the role of Kermit when Jim Henson passed away. Bill Barretta, best known for playing such characters as Swedish Chef, Dr. Teeth, and Elmo's dad. And Kevin Clash, who I mentioned before. Every part of the dinosaur puppet is important in a way, from the huge scaly suits puppeteered by whole bodies, to the eyes that are puppeteered by animatronics. These dinosaur puppets were a creative and technical achievement. I did observe that the show recycles the same dinosaur puppets on a frequent basis for the extra roles, but I would not call this lazy. It kind of adds some unique charm to the show's aesthetic. You can constantly recognize the same puppets being reused again and again for different sideline characters, with costume changes and different voices to set them apart. The choice of using the same batch of puppets over and over reminds me of the Monty Python's Flying Circus. You know it's the same 6 actors for every sketch, but the show manages to convince you that they're all separate characters. This can be said for Dinosaurs too.
Now, those of you that are expecting historical and biological accuracy in the Dinosaur series will be severely disappointed. This is a parallel vision of the Pangian era. Most notable is the fact that, well, the antagonist is a carnivorous Triceratops. That's weird enough. Well, one of his employees is a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Dinosaurs is set in a prehistoric country called Pangia. The dinosaurs share their world with monsters, amphibians, and even humans. Yes, humans. Cavemen to be exact. They're depicted in 2 lights, wild animals and spiritual natives. Cavemen are seen as pets and are played by live-action humans. This is an excellently creative depiction of humankind that's similar to Planet of the Apes or the French animated feature Fantastic Planet, both of which depict humans as pets or slaves. The writers behind Dinosaurs have conjured up a very strange world that almost distances itself from the source material, prehistoric history.
Religion does exist in the Dinosaurs universe, and the show makes some very intelligent commentary considering the controversial subject of religion.
There's an untitled spiritual religion or cultural presence for the dinosaurs already, with traditions being a consistent theme in episodes, and a sacred book called the Book of Dinosaur is often referenced. Dinosaur Heaven is also portrayed in one episode when Ethel has a brief near-death experience. Dinosaur Heaven is depicted like a vacation hotel. Kind of disappointing, really, for such an imaginative show. However, religion is most explored in an episode where the government creates a religion called potatoism to feed the starving curiosity of the dinosaur public. Every citizen of the Pangian population attaches themselves to the answers that potatoism gives. But Robbie challenges the religion, which results in threat of execution. Gradually, the dinosaur society is convinced that they should be free to discover their own beliefs, rather than rely on easy answers concocted by the government. Now, such commentary can be considered as satirical reflections of an existing human religion like Catholicism or Islam, but potatoism obviously is too simplified to be called a clear religious parody. Potatoism is simply a metaphor for religion, but the show isn't attacking religion per se, it's simply commentating on theocratic politics, freedom of beliefs, and extreme religious fundamentalism.
Dinosaurs' depiction of religious freedom and religion in general is fantastic. It's very easy to parody a specific religion, but it takes creative effort and hard work to commentate on a specific subject using metaphorical templates.
The show encourages its characters to rely on spiritual self-discovery to find their own religion. This is a very articulate and peaceful approach to such a sensitive subject.
The government of Pangia can be considered theocratic, but this is only prominent in the potatoism episode. The Pangian government switches between religious and political.
The leader of Pangia is called the Chief Elder, who leads the Council of Elders. A different puppet is used every time for the Chief Elder character, so one could conclude that the role of Chief Elder is a brief one. The Chief Elder takes on governmental, cultural, and spiritual responsibilities. The dinosaur that is selected for the title of Chief Elder is decided by a nationwide vote, and even Earl himself goes up against BP Richfield in a Chief Elder election. The dinosaur government is depicted in a variety of negative ways. They're repressive, controlling, and manipulative. However, sometimes they will let the public influence their political decisions.
Now, you may think that a strict and dominating government could give dinosaurs a very grim atmosphere. Far from it.
You have to remember that the show is relying on dinosaur values. In this show, dinosaur values are represented as unprogressive, violent, and prejudiced. It makes the dinosaur society seem old-fashioned, and you can compare the values to 15th or 16th century human culture. For me, it works. Such values fit the dinosaur species and set up the opportunity for characters to open the debate of change. Now, there is a focus on the subject of war. War for the characters in this show is relatively tame in terms of violence. The weapons include sticks, mudclods, hissing, and spitting. However, the writers reflect their own thoughts on the subject of war in every manner possible, commentating on war's effect on the youth, media, and society itself. The writers even go as far as depicting the dinosaur war itself as pointless because it's all in vain of pistachio nuts. Now, it may be quite common to see a liberal satire of war in puppet and animation shows today, but this was back in the early 90s. The war-themed episodes aired only a year after the first Gulf War, so it was quite brave for a goofy dinosaur family sitcom to approach a subject as controversial as war at such a time, especially with such a serious message. I applaud the writers. The laws of Pangia can be considered ridiculous, but are a series of genius choices for political rules because the writers take advantage of them to show how they can be altered. The laws are hilariously over the top sometimes, and it's fascinating to see violence as something casual in the dinosaur community. A dinosaur's threat of eating another dinosaur is never questioned. In fact, it's revealed that BP Richfield has a habit of eating all his daughter's boyfriends. Now, most societies would see Richfield as a serial killer, but in the dinosaur world, well, cannibalism is an everyday thing. And he's never prosecuted or arrested. It's a very interesting but frightening depiction of a world where murder is considered acceptable.
Television seemed to be the most common thing for dinosaurs to satirize. The show made good use out of the fact that Earl had an obsession of watching television.
The writers portrayed television as stupid, repetitive, and a tool for propaganda. The writers did a fantastic job of parodying commercial sitcoms and television tropes. I found these TV parodies to be funny and incredibly clever. The show attacked television networks too, and depicted their executives as selfish producers with only ratings in mind. The television is also the only way for characters to be updated about the war. We never see the war itself until Earl goes to bring back Robbie. The writers depict the war coverage as unclear and suspicious, with reporters giving half an answer or hinting a possible secret being hid by the government. I'm surprised that these war episodes didn't cause controversy because they had the courage to attack the government's honesty concerning television's coverage of military news.
Now, there is an episode that's focused on the subject of drugs. In this episode, titled A New Leaf, Robbie finds a plant that makes his consumer very, very happy.
The episode shows the effects of drugs in both a negative and positive light. It shows the family high on the plant, and it's extremely funny. Their behavior while high is incredibly amusing. Then we get to see how their dependence on the drug affects their lives, as Earl loses his job and the teenagers refuse to go to school. By the end, the family decide to throw the plant away, and Fran burns the plant herself. Now, once again, Dinosaurs relies on an original creation as a metaphor for something controversial. You have to remember that the plant is never given a name, so there's no clear link to which drug the show is satirizing. Many fans believe that it's a depiction of cannabis, but I refuse to compare the plant to a certain drug. It's not like the producers could have depicted cocaine sniffing or heroin injection. I think the plant represents certain kinds of drugs. Before the plant is destroyed by Fran, Earl actually believes that the plant should be made available to remind them of their temptations and to reflect their strength on not relying it. This is an obvious nod to the legalization of drugs.
The only moment where the fourth wall is broken in order for a character to talk to the audience about drugs is at the end of the episode. My heart actually sank when I saw that Robbie was about to lecture me about drugs, therefore losing the show's consistent charm. But I was pleasantly surprised, shocked even, to hear Robbie say this.
Hi, I'm Robert Sinclair, but you know me as Robbie Sinclair in the adult-themed mega-hit Dinosaurs.
Hey, great show, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri.
But it got a little preachy toward the end.
Indeed it did. You see, folks, drugs are a major problem in our society. Thanks. Drugs ruin lives, divide families, and lead to heavy-handed, preachy sitcom episodes like this one. Of course, we managed to keep it delightfully funny and upbeat, but other shows aren't so lucky. There's an epidemic in television today that threatens the very fiber of the comedy we hold so dear. When one show does an anti-drug episode, other shows feel pressured to do one too. Now they're even going after the younger shows. I mean, we've only been on for a year, and here I am talking to the camera. So come on, say no to drugs. Help put a stop to preachy sitcom endings like this one. It's up to you to make a difference.
This is genius. The show managed to approach drugs with dignity and wit. Robbie spoke about drugs in a very different way from more ridiculous drug awareness programs. Most drug awareness TV specials rely on scare tactics, while Dinosaurs simply brought the subject up and focused on its effects on the family.
Now, the subject of gender identity is a running motif in the series of Dinosaurs. The characters of Fran and Monica are depicted as strong female role models in the show.
The show's depiction of women in Dinosaurs is fantastic, but that doesn't mean that the men lose out, because Robbie is a wonderful depiction of the male race. Robbie is one of the only male characters that doesn't have sexist views of society. He believes in female rights and encourages his mum to do as she wishes. The subject of sex in Dinosaurs is disguised as a dance. In one episode, Robbie has the uncontrollable urge to perform the mating dance whenever he thinks about girls or sees Caroline, his crush. This is an obvious nod to the subject of masturbation. Fran is wonderfully accepting of Robbie's uncontrollable urge, but also understands that it's up to the stiff-hearted Earl to give advice on the matter.
You're dancing because your body's ready for something your mind's not ready to handle yet. And won't be for a good many years.
Years? So what do I do in the meantime?
In a word, sports. Get a ball or rackets and pads and run around the track till you're so exhausted you can't possibly think of anything else.
Really?
Believe me, it works.
I really admire this advice. Earl isn't exactly saying you should never masturbate, it's wrong. Earl is basically helping his son fight an urge for the benefit of his social life, not the benefit of expectations. This is an open-minded approach to the subject of masturbation that's actually done in a tasteful and family-friendly manner.
Now, what about food? What do the characters eat? Well, they do have the option of takeaway, but the family owns a bizarre fridge full of creatures that hand over the food to the characters. This is a fantastically surreal addition to the dinosaur universe. However, most food is served alive. It's very funny in a disturbing way, because their food is aware they're about to die and even talk to the dinosaurs. It's never explained why food is served alive, but it works because these are carnivorous characters. The subject of herbivores is used as a metaphor for vegetarianism, when Robbie starts sympathizing with his food, but Earl disapproves such a diet. The episode is more about Robbie wanting the freedom to decide what he eats. However, his herbivore lifestyle is never mentioned again in future episodes, where he happily eats meat and even shows a passion for hunting. But how do the dinosaurs pay for their food? Dollars. Yes, dollars are their currency, and money is a running theme in the show. The concept of greed over money is one of the most common subjects in the show. Commercial medicine is even attacked in an episode, depicting commercial dinosaur doctors as money-hungry con artists selling expensive medicine that's ineffective, while natural medicine is depicted in a more trustworthy light. Dinosaurs depicts major corporations as evil and money-hungry, through the company of We Say So, which is the corporation that Earl works for. Corporation corruption is perhaps one of the most used themes that's explored in Dinosaurs. The character of B.P. Richfield is the face of corporation corruption in the show because he puts money before the safety of his employees and before the environment. He's a very selfish character that doesn't understand consequences or people's feelings. An ideal villain.
We live in a world where most, but not all, major corporations depict themselves as consumer-friendly and as companies that put their customers first. Now, most major corporations are actually using these ideals to mask their real intention of grabbing all the money they can.
Dinosaurs rips that mask off and shows how some corporations are lying, greedy businessmen that hide behind a friendly mascot or refuse to admit their real own intentions.
Now, the most common subject explored in Dinosaurs is the theme of environmental issues. Now, Dinosaurs isn't preachy about this subject, far from it. It simply depicts the consequences of the dinosaurs' actions. Which leads me to the ending of Dinosaurs.
Yes, Dinosaurs has an ending. In the final episode, Earl is put in charge of environmental decisions and fucks it all up, resulting in the Ice Age. The family huddle around, waiting for the inevitable apocalypse of the dinosaur race. It's heartbreaking, and deeply saddening but touching because they're leaving as a family. The show doesn't end with a bang, it simply has the camera pan out of the house as snow falls. It's truly beautiful. While most environmental messages in entertainment involve characters finger-pointing as they aim to guilt-trip the audience, the show unpretentiously shows the consequences of the dinosaurs' actions without connecting it to the audience's present time. It leaves behind a thought-provoking message without attacking the audience.
Now, to me, Dinosaurs is a thought-provoking, intelligent, and hilarious puppet sitcom. It's a shame it didn't last as it could have done, but, well, just think about the impact that the ending left behind. Such a disturbing and conclusive ending for a family sitcom. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's review. Feel free to watch my other reviews. And if you'd like to be updated about every single review that I make in the future, then, well, just subscribe to me. And I welcome comments below. In addition, I also have Twitter. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. Okay, goodbye, chums.